Well, you know him as the guy who leaked the super classified NSA surveillance program. But did you also know that Ed Snowden is a high school dropout who was reportedly making, by the way, $122,000 a year, this ultra high security job? And EMAC, you say this is more evidence that college just isn't worth the expense.
122. I started out at $19,000 a year with a college degree. That was way back at the crack of dawn. But, listen, go get an accounting degree instead and get a good technical or an engineering degree and buy a house instead. Listen, Michael Dell, Henry Ford, John D. Rockefeller, they didn't go to college. They did pretty well by themselves.
Rick, on the other hand, it is true that the median salary of high school graduates is a lot lower than the median salary of college graduates.
That's right. That's right. And I'm glad you pointed it out, David. Listen, if society ever gets around to changing how we value people, fabulous. But in the meantime, we know that if you have a college degree, you will make 85% more over your lifetime than if you don't. And that's up from 74% more just in 1999. For whatever reason, it matters. Yes, we are under some strain right now with college graduates. They're having a hard time finding jobs. But if you take all college graduates, they actually came out ahead after the recession began. This will work itself out. As I say, if we start valuing people differently, great. In the meantime, if you want to make more money, you need the degree.
But Sabrina, on the other hand, this is one of those on the one hand, on the other hand. On the other hand, this guy Snowden, he dropped out of high school and he then earned a GED, but he never got a college degree. So here's a guy who's making six figures without a college degree.
Well, that's right, because we know that the high price tag doesn't necessarily translate into high value. We do know that 53% of recent college graduates are either underemployed or unemployed, so things are looking a little bleak for some of these college graduates. But as EMAC suggested, if you dig a little deeper, those college graduates who are coming out with accounting degrees, with computer science degrees, as in so many other areas, they are actually doing better than those of us like myself who came out with the liberal arts degrees, because in the end, we need skills, not just the ability to write a good essay.
But John, the fact is that most college students don't graduate with a degree in computer engineering. Many of them graduate with degrees that have kind of negligible value these days.
They don't, but even if they do, college education never offered anything of real-world economic value, but it offers something different. We get away, we grow up, we make friends and contacts, and in a good economy, it helps us get a job. There's a reason that tuition continues to rise is because parents and kids see that there's a real value to having a degree by your name, and so I think we've got to recognize it's not the education. We get something entirely different of value from going to college.
Mike Ozanian, there's another reason why college tuition is going up, and that's the government, right?
Well, that's right. First of all, it sounds like John and I shared the same type of college experience. But yes, you're absolutely right. The reason why fewer graduates are earning a return on their investment or their parents' investment is because government subsidies have raised the tuition of college. And at the same time, David, this is the worst economic recovery we've had since the Depression. So it's harder to earn that return.
But Steve Forbes, even in a down economy, and we are growing at anemic rates, the market still provides some answers, doesn't it?
It does, David, and what we have here says more about our dysfunctional government than it does about colleges. That this guy could make that kind of money, have that kind of access. And but in terms of colleges, what you're going to see more and more is a hybrid, online and a few weeks on campus. And you see it in these business executive programs, Harvard Business School and others. You do 2 to 4 weeks on campus, 12 to 16 weeks on your own on a computer. That's the view of the future. You get the knowledge at a fraction of the cost than you do now.
So, EMAC, the alternatives may be provided by the marketplace,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I tend to agree with Steve. And listen, any studies that say that you get more money with a college degree are skewed, as Sabrina points out, by the degrees that actually make the money. When you look at the college degrees that are liberal arts, you're not making the amount of money that other people are making in the marketplace. And you know what, I'll tell you, Mike Ozanian is absolutely right. The way the college system is built up, it is slamming the middle-class family and American family so hard. So those college graduates are not, as Sabrina points out, getting the jobs as they come out of into the workforce.
Rick Unger, there's no denying the middle class is hit hardest by this, right? By these school costs.
They are, but a couple quick things. To make a blanket statement like saying that everybody who gets a liberal arts degree isn't going to do well is simply not true.
It is true, and the study you cite is from the LA Times. I'm not going to cite an LA Times study to support the data. When you look at the data from the government, it's true.
Okay, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I have a liberal arts degree.
So do I.
It didn't turn out so badly, so it's simply not true.
It
okay?
is.
So
I
that's
started out with
number one.
19,000. Listen, I have a liberal arts degree. I started out with just 19 grand
Let
a
Rick
year.
finish his
That's
point.
nothing.
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
and you're
Rick.
not doing so badly.
Yeah, I had to work
Number
alone.
two,
Finish your point, Rick. Finish your point.
Liz, let me finish. Let me finish. Number two, we have to distinguish something in Steve's point. Steve isn't arguing against a college education. He's arguing about how it's delivered, and I agree with him. It's still a college-level education, whether it's coming over the internet or not. That's fine. But
Really
it's the
quick,
level of the
last
education.
point from Steve. Steve, isn't there a value just to finishing 4 years? I mean, just the fact that you get a degree, sometimes that gives people the confidence to go out into the work world, doesn't it?
Well, what it tells a potential employer is you have the discipline to go through something and get something done. But I think in the future it's going to be more of a hybrid than the traditional at less cost. Better return on your investment.
Don't be afraid of that kind of change, folks. Well, more Americans telling their boss, I quit. Now, it sounds alarming, but the Forbes flip side says it's great for the economy when we hear this.
I quit. I quit. I quit.
Quitting is good? Well, the number of U.S. workers saying, I quit, jumping more than 7% in April. That sounds like a bad thing, but Morgan, you say this is actually a good sign for the economy. How so? This is a flip side.
Yeah, I actually think this is very good for the economy. I think this is reflecting the fact that more employed Americans are feeling confident about their job options, and we're starting to see that mobility take shape. I think this is also being seen in our current unemployment rate. It ticked up to 7.6% last month, and that's because more Americans are feeling confident to go back into the jobs market after record numbers dropped out. I also think it's good because we're seeing the unemployed, the long-term unemployed number, so people who have been unemployed 6 months or longer, that number has dropped by about 1 million as well.
But,
so,
Steve, people aren't feeling good about the economy. Only 18% think it's doing well. 82% think it is fair or poor.
That's right. And pick your number, David. The fact of the matter is this is a sloppy labor market, sloppy economic recovery. It's like a baseball player hitting 250. Some games he'll look like he's Babe Ruth, others like he couldn't get beyond T-ball in Little League. So pick your game, pick your number, but overall not a very sluggish economy.
All right, Rick, you have to use a baseball analogy. Go ahead.
I'm not going to use a baseball analogy. I simply wasn't prepared. I will, however, say that I think Morgan has this one dead on right. The only thing that I would add to it is this. We're reaching the real hit on the baby boomers. A lot of these people who are quitting are actually retiring. So you have to factor that in, and that will continue now. In addition, it's always a good thing if people feel secure enough that they can leave their job. They must think there's another job out there for them.
But there's another statistic. We don't want to get bogged down in statistics, Mike Ozanian, but labor participation, people actually participating in the workforce is very low.
That paints an accurate picture of how strong this economy is. It's only 63.4%. That's typically a number you see during recessions. What you want to see when people leave their existing job, David, is get another job that pays more. That's a sign of a healthy recovery, not what we're seeing now.
Sabrina, is this good or bad news, the fact that people are quitting?
Well, I think I fall somewhere in the middle. I'd like to know where these quitters are. Are they in Austin, Texas, or Washington, D.C., where we're seeing a lot of growth, or are they in places like Detroit? If they are, then I'm not as hopeful, but I should say I'm more hopeful. But I guess I would say I'd also want to know what their college degree is, right? If they're coming out with a degree in accounting, then maybe they have more opportunities.
You know, she brings up a great point, Rich Karlgaard, which is the fact that it depends where you are. I think growth in Texas is good because it's primarily private sector. I think growth in Washington, D.C. is not good because it's primarily public sector.
Sabrina does bring up a very good point, and that's, in a country as large as the United States, you always have to be a little wary of averages. But don't underestimate in these statistics the effect of how easy it is to get on disability today. You find a sympathetic doctor, and a doctor will put you on disability for blood pressure that is too high. So, people don't have quite the incentive to stay in the job marketplace that they did in the past.
Morgan, that's a great point. The fact is a lot of people are just quitting because there are these government alternatives to quitting.
I'm not sure I agree with that, because if you look at the most recent numbers for people filing for unemployment, those numbers are actually down, at least this week. I actually think that we're seeing people quit because they're looking to get other jobs.
Steve, last word on this?
Disability is not unemployment, though.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of discouragement out there, and people are doing things they wouldn't normally do if you had a vibrant economy. So this is like that 250 hitter overall punk.
All right, back to the baseball. Steve just can't avoid the baseball there.
It's the season.
And